I want to congratulate you on Heaven's Gate, The Cult of Cults. I couldn't stop watching it. I binge watched all 4 episodes last night.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Now let's begin with the basics though. You've played with different genres before, short films, documentaries, and also different subjects within the documentary genre. Describe your way of picking materials to direct.
I mean, I gravitate most towards finding good characters. I want to be able to see people learn things, evolve, change. Most of the time, I do a lot of like present tense storytelling and try to utilize verite footage. But for this show in particular, it was a different thing for me and a different muscle to exercise of a lot of past tense storytelling. And so trying to still give you that same emotional journey and experience, but doing it through mainly just interviews and archive. And we added some animation as well, which I think was really beautifully rendered to help continue to draw you in emotionally as well. And so, yeah, just really good characters and unique access. Those are the things that the two pillars that I look for.
Well, along that same line, so why Heaven's Gate? I mean, did you meet the your interviewees first before deciding it was going to be Heaven's Gate for you?
No, I actually, the project came to me from Ross Dinnerstein and the folks at Campfire because they bought the rights to the podcast, the Heaven's Gate podcast, the 10-part that came out back in like 2016. And so I listened to that and I loved it. And I loved it because it was really delving into the experiences of the family members and the former group members themselves and really give them the platform to tell the audience their experience, and was a deep dive into their process. You got a psychological breakdown of the leaders, T and Do, and sort of the length of time of the cult, which I very much appreciated. But really, it was those people's voices that I gravitated towards.
That's right. So, describe to us. I know you touched up on this in your documentary, but describe to us the appeal of Heaven's Gate, the cult.
I think that the appeal of Heaven's Gate really broke down to taking an ideology that you already are familiar with in Christianity and marrying that with some of the existential beliefs that science fiction and UFOs can also bring to a way of thinking. So, back in the 70s when the group was formed, UFOs were sort of a new topic for culture, and then you also had this feeling of unrest and unease. So that's sort of where Heaven's Gate was born from. And 20 years later, towards the mid 90s, there's sort of a resurfacing of those same types of social unrest towards the end of the millennium. And there was like this idea of a possible second coming of Christ. And so you have those religious themes and the sort of technology UFO themes cropping up again as well. But those were the two real big pillars of their ideology.
You know what? So, tell me why you chose the subtitle, "The Cult of Cults." Why is that?
We chose the Cult of Cults because that's what Marshall Applewhite, who is the leader who went by Doe, that's what he called them. And we have a clip in the show itself where he says that we are the cult of cults, we're the cult of truth, because he knew that the word cult itself was a bit of a pejorative. It was a way for you to discount someone's beliefs immediately and say, oh, they're a cult, they believe weird things, just like they are outcasts. And he wore that outcast badge with honor and was like, I know that you're going to try to discount me, but I know that we are the truth. And so I'm going to steal your thunder and like call ourselves a cult and not be able to have you sort of cast me aside.
That's right. Emasculate the word itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to commend you for moving the story forward. I mean, I, as a viewer, only knew of the suicide of the group that happened that day, but didn't hear anything about the subsequent suicides of other members who weren't able to join the exit. I mean, they're all heart-wrenching.
Yeah, I didn't really know that either. And so, in listening to the podcast and doing some of our research, understanding that there were 3 more people that committed suicide afterwards. So everyone likes to talk about the 39, but really it was, the 42 people who lost their lives to this group. Yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us, how long did it take you to finish the documentary from the beginning to the end?
We started back in, I think, July of 2019, and so we, it took us about a year and a few months. But COVID was really a hard situation to work under. We still had a few things to film that we just weren't able to, and we had to figure out a way to tell the story without those pieces. And I think our team, our producers, our editors did a magnificent job of trying to work with what we had available to us and tell a complete story anyway. But yeah, like working under COVID was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, let's talk about Marshall Herf Applewhite, or Doe, the leader. You touch up on his homosexuality, and I know this has been debated before, but do you think part of his Heaven's Gate persona, if you may, has to do with society's negative attitude towards the LGBTQ community during his time, or does it go far deeper than sexual repression?
I mean, for me, it was hard to divorce from that narrative that's got a pretty clear straight line of like he grew up in a very evangelical household that demonized homosexuality, and he himself had those urges, and so he hated himself for it, and the fact that he came up with a ideology that allows you to disassociate from your body and its urges in order to physically go to another place where you live in this other body in outer space, and it's like its own form of heaven. I don't know. I just see those as so clear. Like I there's a lot of self-hatred that allows me to divorce myself from that body and be someone else.
That's right, divorcing himself from the flesh. That's
Correct.
correct. Now, what about his partner in crime, Bonnie Nettles, or T? Those letters that her daughter shared near the end kind of changes her story, right?
Yeah, that was a wild reveal that that T was a little bit of an enigma. I didn't know about her. I remembered the suicides happening in 97 and remembered parts of the story, but like I didn't even know that she was a co-leader. So I was fascinated by her, but really her whole persona was that she didn't say anything. Like there was hardly any footage or audio of her talking.
Yeah.
And so really getting to know her was a challenge, but something that we wanted to, as much as possible, infuse the importance of her into the story. And so when you learn later in the series that she had actually been breaking some of the cult's own rules and communicating with her family, yeah, it just calls into question like how much the belief system was that they created was only for their followers or not for them, or was in some way yeah, just like what flaws were present in their leadership.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. You know what? I enjoy the eye-opening portraits of different past members. Their stories are quite poignant, especially for me, Sawyer, who
Yeah,
left the group of his own accord due to his sexual impulses.
correct. Yeah, I mean Sawyer's fascinating. I think that um he's just he's got a lot of inner conflict and turmoil in himself, and I think one of the things that drew me to him is that he still believes in a lot of the ideology of the group, and that ideology is based around, like we said, divorcing yourself from humanness
Yeah.
and from a lot of the things that make us human. Yet Sawyer's one of the most human people and vulnerable people that I've ever met. Like he just sort of oozes this um, uh, I don't know, like this integrity and vulnerability. So he can't help but be human, even though he doesn't want to be. So it's very complex situation that he provides for the show.
I was like thinking, oh my God, do not do the exit, because I mean he was very intriguing, like what you said. How did you get those incredible never before seen footage, by the way?
So it's a crazy story. One of our editors, James, was looking at some of the archive that we had gotten, and it was a letter from a former member to his family back in 1976. And the letter said, "Oh, parents, I wish that you could see some of the conversations that were filmed by this guy in Oklahoma recently, he really captured what the group is about. And our editor James was like, wait a minute, who's this guy? And he like started, doing the going down the internet rabbit holes and looked him up. And the guy had a video production company in Oklahoma still. So we called the number. This guy's son answered and said, oh yeah, my dad is deceased, but we have these tapes in storage that we shot back in 1976 of the group. And it's like a couple meetings that T and Doe held, and then a couple interviews with group members. And we were like, oh my Lord. Okay. And they sent them to us, and we were able to use a bunch of them in the first couple episodes in particular.
All those cable access shows, right?
I know. Yeah. It's wild and fascinating. It's also like, yeah, it's emotional too, because you're able to see, like, some people I got to know as like, I'm watching their exit videos right before they commit suicide. And I just like know them only through that.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to see one of the members, Joy Scala, like she just had joined 2 weeks ago, and she's talking about how hard it is to leave her twin daughters behind in 1976. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like we have sort of the beginning of this woman's journey and the very end. And it's tragic and powerful.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? All I could think of while I was watching your documentaries, I mean, it could happen today, right? I mean, with all these conspiracy theories and everything, I mean, we're more vulnerable this time, I think. So what can we learn about this event, and why is it really relevant to today?
I mean, to me, the big takeaways are expressed by Janja Lalich at the very end of the show, which are, one, to not be judgmental against people who have ideas that are different than your own. And to be careful to not give your power up to someone else, to maintain that critical thinking and not become such a true believer and a fanatic that you believe in somebody that has the sole access to the truth, that you give up your free will in that way. And so, that's happening on sort of both sides of the aisle politically for us at the moment, but certainly there's lots of the parallels to the conspiracy theories and QAnon and that sort of mentality right now.
Yeah, it's creepy. Were you talking, by the way, were you talking about the psychiatrist at the end, where because he said something really profound, and when he's talking to the former cult members, he's not trying to make them agree with him, but to make them think on their own accord again, right?
Right. Yeah, that's Steve Hassan. That's another one of our cult experts. And yeah, he's like a cult deprogrammer is not the right word, but he's like a exit therapist. And so he talks to people and helps them sort of see the light of how indoctrinated they were, and try to like bring them back into some sense of logic and reality. And he does that oftentimes by showing a lot of Heaven's Gate material to people that are coming out of various cults. And I mean, I would say just personally the problem with some of the political extremism today is like, we live in a country that has it's a two-party system.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of like, oh, you can look at this other ideology, right, and it's safe. Like we sort of are binary in our political thinking. So it's a bit tougher when you get into politics, I think.
That's right. Now, my final question, Mr. Clay, do you believe in aliens?
Yeah, I do. I don't think that we're alone in the universe. So I'm open to the idea that there's life on other planets, and whether or not they're here, whether the Galactic Federation is a real thing, I don't know, but I'm open to it.
You're right, because thinking the opposite is just being haughty about it, right? I mean, you can't just be alone.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. That's pretty arrogant, a lot of hubris for us to think that we're the only organisms with intelligent life out there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much again for your eye-opening documentary, Mr. Clay, and good luck on everything. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching.
All right. Thank you.